Hey guys, I'm Azra, and in this Lord of the Rings Rise to War video, I'm going to show you battle reports about Yusraa. We have a new build, and big shout out to one of our community members, being Lear. Thank you, Lear, for showing me how this works. He has found a build that works with Morgul Arbalests, and this build is all about your ranged units. So let's see what is necessary for that build. As weapons, you do have a few choices over here. It could be the Mirkwood Bow, which I believe is the best purple weapon for her, and right now I am running Pierce, but ranged might is also very decent. And as a second weapon, you can also make do with the Uruk crossbow with Shatter. So these are the two purple weapons I would recommend. And as a chest piece, I would recommend the Scout's Mail. This has lots of speed. This is going to boost the damage of your Respect 5 title. And as special effect, I would recommend Deafness. The more speed, the more damage you are going to deal with her Respect 5 title. As her headpiece, definitely go with Trapper's Hood. This is boosting the damage of your Arbalest while giving you lots of speed for even further damage increase with your Respect 5 title, but above all it has Hysteria, and you need this to trigger the Respect 5 title's additional damage. Last but not least, as her accessory, I would go with the Wizard's Fireworks. It has plus attack for your Arbalests and also Hunter's Mark in case you need to counter Gil-galad's, but in case you don't need to counter him, you can always switch back to Ranged Might for some additional damage for your Morgul Arbalest. Considering her build, you want to run something like this. So right now I am running her with her purple gear, and this is forcing me to play her with these skill points. If you had the gigantic hammer with Frenzy, that would have changed the build a bit. If you had the gigantic hammer with Frenzy, instead of investing points into Easterling and Iron Guard, you want to max out Experienced Warrior, Hunt Down and Collaboration first, and then whatever leftover points you spent into Easterling and Iron Guard. And why am I saying this? Because with the Gigantic Hammer Frenzy, you have Hunt Down and you can apply this debuff twice if you are lucky on one round. Each round, a chance of applying Hunt Down twice. That is a huge damage increase for your army. But since I don't have the Gigantic Hammer with Frenzy yet, I am changing the build a bit. Instead of maxing out her top Respect 0 tree, I am kind of forced to max out Easterling and Iron Guard first to provide the desperately needed protection for my Arbalests. And if you are wondering how to spend her skills, like watching her skill order, she is very sensitive to her skill order. Just go back to my Yusraa guide, revisit it. I have talked about a skill order thoroughly. I will leave a link to that as well in this video. But before we continue with the battle reports, let me show you something that is very important for Yusraa. So here you see the skill order in which order the skills are going to activate. Like we have Interrogator, Restrain, Laceration, and also the Hysteria effect from her Trapper's Hood. This is also important to get some value out of Interrogator. And speaking of which, here we have Interrogator. It is proccing every 3 rounds, and also it is keeping the debuffing effect up until 1 round after. So here you see it procs on round 3, but it also lasts until round 4. But keep in mind, this is going to last only until the enemy unit has started to take its turn. Like if your unit is slower than the enemy unit, then this debuff will disappear on round 4. But if your units get to hit the enemy unit first, then you still get the value of Interrogator on round 4. The same goes for round 7 and also round 10. So this is like a feature that isn't really described, but after watching the battle reports, this is what I have understood. Looking at this graph, what I immediately see is that our strongest round is going to be round 4, because here we also get the Restraint proc and also Laceration proc for some additional physical damage. Now we just need to make sure that our units hit first on round 4. You could make sure with the Signet of the Barrows with Blitz or the Fiddle of the Eldest with Blitz as well. But that is just a bonus. It would be nice if you can go first on round 4. If not, you kinda have to pray that the enemy units are slower than your Morgul Arbalest. If you are wondering how to build her army, this is what it pretty much looks like. It is very easy. You always want to have Morgul Arbalests in your army. It could be 4,000 or 4,500, that is okay. If you want to have 4,500, you have to be a bit short on your mountain trolls. but like this, you see 60 mountain trolls, 4,500 Mongol Arbalests, that could work. But when you notice that you are losing lots of mountain trolls, you have to revert back to 80 mountain trolls. And as a third unit, you want to have a filler unit. That could be Great Beasts. I think this is the #1 choice for them. They are protecting your ranged units with Bulwark, and also they have Wild Yell. This is going to increase the damage of your Mongol Arbalest by 20%, so great unit overall. If you don't have access to them, you can also have like War Chariots that too will work with the bleeding effect whenever your Mongol Arbalests hit, or when you don't play Rune, like you don't have access to Chariots, feel free to replace them with Champions. Champions work nice as well. If you are fighting against lots of mounted units, it's going to be Halberdiers. If you're fighting lots of ranged units, feel free to fill in some Dragoons. And there you go, this is the troop composition for this build. Let's start the battle reports with Dwalin. So right now, let me tell you that this build is strongest against a single stack of a unit in the enemy army. Right now, the enemy army has 3 units, which isn't really working in our favor, which is also why we have this poor result. But I still wanted to show you what's going on over here. Nothing has changed, like I still have the same gear and the same build, and here we are fighting Dwalin. He has this gear, Twin Axe with Battle Dance. I'm not a fan of Battle Dance because the 20% chance to have like increased normal attack damage, that doesn't sound fair. 20% is like it's going to be active twice in a battle, so I don't see enough value in the respect 10 item of Dwalin. Durance Plate with Vulnerability, alright, that is nice. Iron Bassinet, Fortitude of Soldiers, Lothlorien Belt, and Iron Guard. I see, so he gets some additional healing for his units. And this is the build he has. You see it is a high respect level Dwalin, and this is the outcome. In the snapshot page, we see we have done 280k-ish damage versus 240k-ish damage. And in the detailed view, we see that Yusraa has done a fair share of damage, but the biggest chunk of her damage comes, of course, from her Mongol Arbalests, and the tanks are doing what they are supposed to do, just eating the damage. Here we are fighting a Gandalf the Grey player. Again, we were unfortunate because 3 units in this army, that isn't really working out for our interrogator. Let's see the gear. It is Cover with Smite, Scale with Guard, Bone Mask with Hysteria, One-Hot Smoking Pipe with Sustain. So the gear makes totally sense. And the skill point spent also makes sense. He has his regular stun. Every 3 rounds he's going to stun 1 enemy target. That is good. He has Mithrandir with Convener. I can't complain about that. He also has Surge just to have 1 more attack to proc the healing. And yeah, this just makes sense. High Alert is also picked. And here we are in the snapshot page. We have done 220k damage versus around 165k damage. In the detailed view, we see Yusraa didn't as much damage as in the report before, and our Mongol Arbalests are falling short on damage as well. This is because Gandalf the Grey has High Alert and also White Council, lots of damage mitigation, be it against physical or elemental damage. But it can't be really helped. This is just how strong Gandalf the Grey is. He is a good universal commander. The only thing we could have changed over here is maybe included a bit more mountain trolls, because you see all of them are dead. So here we could have used 80 mountain trolls instead of 60. And in this battle report, I have used 80 mountain trolls, but still that wasn't good enough. And I also had Great Beasts instead of Chariots, but that still didn't do it. Look at this. Gandalf the Grey has this gear: Mirkwood Bow with Ranged Might, Scale with Melee Vigor, Trapper's Hood with Hysteria, and Wizard's Firework with Hunter's Mark. And also the build of this Gandalf makes lots of sense. He has the stun, he has the convener, he has the damage coverage with Mithrandir and also High Alert, but in this case he is focusing on lots of damage, physical damage, because with Wizard maxed out, he is decreasing our defense stat, which is also why he is kind of wailing against our units. Very strong Gandalf over here. And he has also Master Throwers. They are very strong in countering large units. Guess what? Mountain Trolls are large units, and also Great Beasts. So This is a direct counter against this Yusraa. Great job from this Gandalf the Grey player. We have done only 210k damage versus 190k damage. In the detailed view, we see that Yusraa herself didn't do that much damage, while her Morgul Arbalests actually did a fair chunk of damage, but the tanks just were wiped out, like not enough tanks left. Here we are fighting against Gandalf the White, a very strong counter against this Yusraa. Let's see what gear he has. He has his Respect 10 item, Glam Ring, Back to the Shadow, that is a strong weapon, Elven Cloak with resistance, so he is kinda safe against our additional poison damage from our Morgul Arbalests. And then Cask of Submerged Isle with Aegis. This is one of the strongest counters against Yusraa, because Interrogator is relying a lot on madness and also stun. This helmet is countering both of Yusraa. Hysteria won't do lots of work, we can't really get some value out of the early rounds with Hysteria. Aegis is covering that. And also Yusraa's first big stun in round 4 is being countered by that. No additional damage for Interrogator. Then he has Meara's Reigns with Might of Cavalry. That is great. And then he's going to use the White, lots of focus damage. Focus damage is going to bypass the high defensive stat of our big tanky units. That makes sense. He's also going to stun our units every 3 rounds with Blindside. That is also kind of crazy. And then he has Magical Barrier to boost his defensive stat. What does that mean? Lots of physical damage mitigation for his army. He's also going to stun 2 of our units on round 1 while decreasing our defensive stat. White Council again with High Alert. And also Champion of the Light is just amazingly good against our army composition. And then White Rider, this is going to throw a debuff against us, which is going to increase the damage we receive by 8%, and this can stack 4 times. We have no chance against this Gandalf the White player. This is like a Kraken level player. We see we have done around 100k damage versus almost 300k damage. This guy has countered all of our strengths, and you can't do anything about it. Every command in the game can be countered, and this is how you counter this Yusraa. Here we are fighting against the Gil-galad player, and this guy has even one unit that is T2, his Marksman. But this is normal because it is a Gil-galad. Gil-galad is very strong, especially if you have gear like this. Elven White Knife with Might of Elves, Ranger's Shroud with Resistance, Hunter's Guide with Discord, so he is kinda using our own strength against us. We are fighting ourselves with Discord. Nightstar with Opportune Strike, and all the skills just totally make sense. This is a meta build Gil-galad. Let's look at the snapshot page. We have done 150k damage versus 290k damage, and we see that our Morgul Arbalests, even though they had tanks at their side, that wasn't enough. Everything was wiped out to 0. Another strong counter against Yusraa. Here you see King Aragorn. Now let's check out his gear. He has his Respect 10 item, Anduril, Kingly Inspiration, Quilted Armor with Focus Protection, Cask of the Submerged Isle with Last Resort, and then Belt of the Citadel with Armor Defense. This guy has one skill that is scaring me a lot, being King of Man. Now, it is giving you a certain percentage damage mitigation, be it against physical or elemental, whenever your man units get inflicted with stun or madness, and that is just crazy. I don't understand why he hesitated putting one more point into this, because instead of having this damage mitigation for the first 5 rounds maxed out, you get it for the whole battle. So there's a strong damage mitigation, and Yusraa is having lots of madness and stun mechanics in her build right now. This is just directly countering it. I think this is the scariest counter Yusraa has, and that is just that. You can't do anything against it. In the snapshot page we see we have done 130k damage versus 290k-ish damage. And then in the detailed view we see that this is a direct counter against Yusraa. You see nothing. Nothing has survived long enough to deal a decent amount of damage. And here we are fighting a Theoden. Now look at this. There is one thing that is directly countering us. The Bow Knights are getting rid of our mountain trolls and also our great beasts. They are countering large units. Giant Slayer is providing that. And also because he is running 3 units in his army. We can't really get any value out of our interrogator. It is what it is. Let's check out his gear. He has Cutlass with melee might, Scout Mail with Shroud, Horseman's Helm with Resolve. You see, like, he is countering our Hysteria procs. That is also a bad thing. And then he has Fiddle of the Elders with Second Wind. He is also removing debuffs. And guess what? We do have lots of debuffs. We rely on like Hysteria and also Laceration. And with this, he can get rid of 1 random debuff. But I can't complain about his build. This makes totally sense. This is a meta build Theoden. In the snapshot page, we see we have done 280k damage versus 265k damage. Here you see Morgul Arbalests have done the biggest chunk of our damage, but our tanks didn't survive long enough. Let this be my last report. Here we are fighting again against a Theoden. He has a 3-unit army which isn't working in our favor, but still it is a good example how you can still get some value out of this Yusraa build. Theoden, he has this gear, Cutlass with melee might, Quilted armor with focus protection, Horseman's helm with warding, so he isn't immune against our Hysteria, that is good, and then the Wizard's fireworks with Hunter's mark, so we aren't scared of this item at all. And his build, now let's look what he has done. I'm okay with this build, like Chaotic Retreat having 5 points. But what I wish he had done was, instead of maxing out Riding Excellence, I would have put 7 points into his skill where his mounted units get a chance to hit twice per round. So that is the only complaint I have over here. In the snapshot page, we see that we have done around 425k-ish damage. That is a lot of damage. Versus around 155k damage. In the snapshot page we see that our Morgul Arbalests, oh my god, they have done 250k damage. I have never seen them deal this much of damage, and Yusraa herself almost reached the 160k damage mark. So you see, this build has its uses, but you have to be really careful where you send your Yusraa in. It shouldn't be against a 3-unit army, and the enemy army shouldn't have like madness immunity mechanics or CC immunity in general. Like madness and stun immunity is very bad for this Yusraa, but you can get some value out of it as you see. And there you go. This is Yusraa without her Respect 10 item. You can still play her. If you have the Gigantic Hammer with Frenzy, that's even better. That's where this build shines a lot. So there's lots of room for improvement. I can just wholeheartedly recommend you get yourself the Gigantic Hammer with Frenzy and try this out. And that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this one, let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. I see you guys next time.